What's up and welcome back to Bardown Talking Hockey episode number 163, presented by the Barroom Network. It is the home of your soon-to-be Stanley Cup champion Edmonton Oilers. My name is Vinny Parisi, and my favorite hockey team finally has a goalie. And this right here, this is Frankie Mueller. And who the hell knows what he thinks of any of this crazy NHL breaking news, Frank? How you doing?
I hope it's a good one.
I'm pumped.
I hope it's a good one.
What do you
better be worth it?
What better be worth it?
The goalie. It better.
You know nothing?
No.
You know nothing.
Not a thing.
Have you looked at your phone at all today?
Nope, not really.
Wow. All right, Frank. We'll get into it. Let's move right into it in period number one. We're going to start talking about the Stanley Cup final as we have on the sheet. We're going to do the exact same sheet that we have written, except at the beginning, we're going to talk about a little bit of the NHL breaking news because the New Jersey Devils have traded Kevin Ball and a 2025 first-round pick to the Calgary Flames in exchange for Jacob Markstrom. Jacob Markstrom. Now listen, I'm not sitting here acting like Jacob Markstrom is Sergei Bobrovsky or Igor Shesterkin or Andrei Daddy Vasilevsky. I'm not. He is an above-average goalie. He has been a Vezina caliber goalie in the past. He spent the last 2 years on a stinky Calgary Flames team. He had a .905 save percentage last year. That's fucking worlds better than the .890 whatever save percentage that Akira Schmid and Vitek Vanacek combined for last season. If he has a .905 save percentage next year, the Devils can win the damn Metropolitan Division with all the great scoring that they have. This is a wonderful move, and they didn't move 10th overall. They moved next year's first-round pick, where if Markstrom plays as good as we know he's capable of playing, and if Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier and Timo Meier and Jesper Bratt and the boys all play to the top of their game like they did a year ago, that pick might be 27, 28, 29 anyway. Who the hell cares? This is great news for the New Jersey Devils. Markstrom's the best goalie they've had since Corey Schneider now. This is a monumental day. Now listen, again, like I said about everything with Markstrom, he's a great goalie. If he's not top 10, he's probably like 11, 12, 13th in the league. He's a great, great goalie. He's 35. He's not the long-term answer, but it gives you 3 or 4 years. Most of Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier's mid-20s of goaltending production then will be good. And it is just a great day. I'm so excited. This is a great move. What say you about the deal?
I'm happy for you. That's a good move. Much needed for the Devils, VP. This is what we were waiting for. They weren't going anywhere without a goalie. Now they can maybe have some headway. The Calgary Flames, I guess they're listening to us now. They're rebuilding, I assume, with this move, obviously. Because who's their number 2? Dan Vladar? Is it still Vladar, or did they move on from him too? So yeah, I assume this offseason for the Flames is going to be a little bit of a fire sale then, because you're not going to trade Markstrom and then not rebuild it, like get rid of anybody else and rebuild. That'd be kind of silly, but good for the Devils, VP. That's good news. I thought you were going to say they got Hellebuck or something. That would have been sick. But hey,
that would be sick.
Markstrom's I don't want to say he's just as good, but he's better than what you had. And you could definitely win a playoff series and even a cup with Jacob Markstrom. So
I think so too.
We'll see what happens though, because I shit on him a few years ago, and then he was great, and then he was kind of mediocre last year. He was okay. The Calgary Flames, they stunk though, but.
So you do see correlation with that. 2-3 years ago, when the Battle of Alberta was like Zach Kassian versus Matthew Tkachuk, and the Oilers and the Flames were fighting every other shift. That Flames team was great. They made it to the second round. They played the Battle of Alberta. I believe it went 7 and the Oil won, or maybe it was 6 and the Oil won. and then the Oil got creamed by the Colorado in the conference finals. But still, the Battle of Alberta, Markstrom was great. And as they started to kind of fall off a little bit, his numbers, they were good. He had a 278 goals against average last year. Do you know what it would be like if the Devils they were over 500, barely missed playoffs, and had a team save percentage under 890? So,
that's good.
The fact that you're adding this guy who has under 3 goals against average and a 905 save percentage, a career 909 save percentage. He is 215, 196, and 57 in his career, split between the Florida Panthers, Vancouver Canucks, Calgary Flames. It has been, I forgot he was included in the trade that sent Roberto Luongo back to Florida from Vancouver. That's pretty crazy. And then he signed with Calgary after being in Vancouver, which he was pretty good pretty much everywhere he goes. The only year in the last 10 that were kind of bad for Markstrom, 2 years ago when the Flames were really bad. It wasn't the best year for Markstrom, but last year he bounced back. He waived his no-move clause to go to the Devils, and 30% of his salary retained by Calgary. So the Devils now, they come into next season. Jack Hughes is on a cheap deal for his production. 8 schmil for a guy of Hughes' caliber. That's a lot. He would get, if Jack Hughes was a free agent this summer, could sign with any team, he'd get 13, right? Like he'd probably get just short of McDavid money, right around McKinnon money, short of McKinnon, a little less than McKinnon money. And Nico Hischier, he hits the free agent market tomorrow. He probably gets 10, a top 10 Selke trophy guaranteed, maybe even win one of these years. He probably gets 10. He's signed for 7. Bratt and Meyer are each in the 8s. Those are high volume goal scoring wingers who bring a lot of character to the team. You got Jake Allen and Jake Markstrom, the 2 Jakes. I love the name Jake all of a sudden. Let's go, Jake. The 2 Jakes are signed for a combined $6 million against the cap. That's amazing. Most teams. Bobrovsky makes 11 against the cap. That's craziness. This is a great move. I am so excited. This is one of the most excited I've been. Timo Meier, I saw coming. It was either them or the Hurricanes. We talked about it. Markstrom, I saw a goalie coming, but until a goalie comes, you never know. You never know
how. You knew it wasn't going to be a bad goalie, though, either.
No,
right? You knew it was going to be above average, no matter what route they were going to take.
Yep. The amount of teams that desperately need one is small, and they were one of them. So there was a little bit of leverage.
They needed one bad.
Well, Frank, another team that desperately needed one was the Los Angeles Kings. They didn't go out and get a superstar. They kind of did what the Devils did. You might think this goalie's a tick below Markstrom in the overall rankings, but it has been proven that he can win a Stanley Cup because he has before. Darcy Kemper is going from the Washington Capitals to the Los Angeles Kings in exchange for Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Yeah, I just saw the notification for the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. I didn't know Darcy Kemper was part of that package. Yeah, I would prefer.
The trade is 1-for-1.
Oh, okay. Well, I think Markstrom's better than Kemper. I think Kemper had his time back in the day. Very interesting going to the Kings. I mean, the Kings obviously playoff contender. Do I love the move for the Kings? No. Is it going to help them? Yeah, it could. It could help them, but I think the Kings need to do a lot more. I would have liked to see them go out and get somebody a little more talented, even though Darcy Kemper is a talented goalie. He can be. He's won a Stanley Cup. But I guess the Kings weren't in as bad of a predicament as the Devils were in terms of goaltending, which is maybe why they figure we could, I don't even know how much Kemper's being made, to be honest with you. So maybe it was salary cap issues. They just kind of wanted to go cheap and get a decent.
They wanted to get rid of Dubois. I think they would have gotten rid of him for like a 7th. I really did.
There you go.
And they got a guy who might help them win as a goalie in exchange. I don't think that necessarily takes the Kings out of the goaltending market per se, but Darcy Kemper's won the Stanley Cup. He's been a good goalie in the NHL. If he's their backup even, I think that would be great for them.
Their backup. I'd like to see him as their backup and them go to get another goalie. But then again, not everybody could go out and get a goalie. We say all these teams need goalies. I mean, eventually, all those good goalies, you can only go to so many teams. So, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So,
Now it's basically like, are the Predators going to trade Saros? Are the Bruins going to trade Allmark? I'm
I would
leaning
think
yes.
so.
I'm leaning yes, Allmark. I'm leaning no now on Saros. I really kind of thought the only two teams that would pony up to get Saros, because I figure he'll be an expensive trade piece. Markstrom has a little leverage because the Bruins have Swayman and everybody knows it. Markstrom, he had a no trade clause. He kind of controlled a lot of things. And other teams knew that. Kemper, he's not, anything that he doesn't have much leverage at all. It was more getting rid of Dubois. I think for that reason, Allmark is like a for sure. Saros, neither side really has leverage. Like,
Yeah.
he's an elite goalie, and they have Akira Askarov waiting in the wings. So, it'll
Allmark will
just
be
be Allmark will be gone. I put Saros at 40% gone, 60%
just because you
stays.
can't have two goalies like that on your team. It's just no.
I mean, the Bruins did for how long? Maybe
No,
Nashville's time hasn't run
no,
out yet.
that's what I'm saying. No, no, no.
Oh,
I'm saying Allmark and Swayman, you can't keep doing what they're doing. It's just not working. Come
yeah.
playoff time. It's just you don't need those two types of caliber goalies on your team, especially when
Agreed.
you're not winning with them.
Agreed. The other breaking news yesterday: the New York Rangers
I
put
heard that.
Barclay Goodrow on waivers. Well, he was claimed. He was claimed by the team that had first priority in the waiver claim. He is going back to the San Jose Sharks.
I mean, right now that's where guys are going to die until they're done rebuilding. But I mean, good for the Sharks.
Good for the Rangers. They got rid of Goodrow without retaining anything, without giving up a prospect or a pick to get rid of him. I actually think that's a great move for the Rangers. I thought he was going to go unclaimed, and the Rangers were going to be stuck with him. But crazy. I think another big move that I think you might not find all that interesting, but I was shocked to hear this. The Dallas Stars acquired a 4th-round pick in 2025 from the San Jose Sharks in exchange for Ty Dellandrea. Dellandrea is going to San Jose. Dellandrea was the 13th overall pick in the 2019 NHL draft. He's played 151 games, and he has 0 goals. I think Dellandrea has a high ceiling. The leadership he displayed when he was younger was incredible. As our guy Bucci points out, the Dallas Stars believed he could be like a captain one day. Like, he showed that level of maturity as a teenager. But in order to be a captain and a leader in the NHL, you also have to be a player willing or good enough to participate in the league. So we'll see if he's able to develop with a little less pressure in San Jose. Obviously, if you're playing in Dallas, it's very hard to crack the lineup. It's very hard to get enough minutes to score on a regular basis. With San Jose, he will certainly be afforded that opportunity. I actually think it's a great trade for both sides. Dallas gets another asset for a sunk cost, a 1st-round pick that they made back in 2019. 13th overall is the lowest they've picked in the last probably 10 years, and it's probably the lowest they'll pick for at least another 3 or 4. Even though Dallas, I still think I see them as like the Panthers a little bit, where like they had a lot of veterans on their team at one point with this young core coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the young core kind of took over and the veterans kind of got shipped out a little bit. Luongo, Stahl, guys like that. And then now look at them. That could happen to the Stars. I love Ryan Suter. I love Joe Pavelski, but you're not going to guarantee me that whoever comes in can't be better if they're younger, more agile, more adaptive to the systems that they play there. I don't know, but this is an interesting trade. I do think it's a good trade for both sides.
Before we got on the show, I actually told G about that the Stars got Ty Dellandrea. So it's funny you say that. Yeah, he's a young guy. I don't know where he'll crack the lineup, right? He's a center, so obviously probably be a 4th-line guy. Did you say he had 0 goals?
Yeah. Dellandrea is going to the Sharks from the Stars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, to the Sharks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had it flip-flop.
But I know what you meant. Yeah, he hasn't scored. 13th overall in 2019. I think with San Jose, he'll get an opportunity.
I see 14 goals from him in his career. Maybe I'm crazy.
Wait, maybe that's what Bucci means. He said hasn't been able to score in the NHL after 151 games. Maybe he just means like with consistency.
Yeah, because he
That
scored
must be
2
what he
with
means.
Dallas last year.
Yeah, that must be
Um,
what he means.
yeah, I mean, he has been inconsistent when you look at his numbers, but so he's going to the Sharks. I don't know why I got that confused.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it
Sharks
is
making a lot of
interesting.
moves.
The Sharks, they're gonna suck, right? Like,
Yeah,
I think they're gonna be so bad. But they could be in the sweepstakes for. I can't remember if Gavin McKenna is 2025 or 2026, but like either way, I
I think
think
he's
they're bad that
26,
long.
right? I think
I
it's
think
26.
maybe, but I think like they're bad for long enough to be in contention for that. Like next year, we'll see Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini in the NHL. We'll see if other guys that they've brought up, like Eklund and Mohamedulin, can take chances. But I still foresee them as like a last place team in the Pacific Division. But there's starting now to be this group coming together, and I still think they're a long ways away. They're the farthest away from contention in the NHL, in my opinion.
Mhm.
But they have a nice base being started, I believe. And in
Yeah,
3-4 years, we might look at San Jose and go, they cooked.
they cooked.
It's
Very well cooked.
possible. It's possible. All right, Frank. With these breaking news that were happening, if more stuff happens throughout the show, we'll continue to call it out because it kind of seems like teams have no interest in waiting till the Stanley Cup final is over to make some of these moves. God damn, am I excited that the Devils got a goalie. It's about time. Ba, ba,
Yeah,
ba, ba, na, na,
it
na, 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 na.
really is. They
It really
needed that.
is.
They
They needed
needed
that,
that.
Frank. They're aiming to become a team that participates in the Stanley Cup final as the Florida Panthers and Edmonton Oilers currently are. Since our last show, games 1 and 2 were played in our last show. The Florida Panthers had a 2-0 series lead. And since then, Frank, the Edmonton Oilers have gone 2-1. They trailed the series 3-2. Their backs have been against the wall for 2 straight games now. But after a big win in game number 5, we're headed to game 6 on Friday night. What did you see in this little 3-game stretch since our last show?
Yeah, the series definitely has a different feeling now than it did last week when we talked about it. In game 3, um, Panthers won 4-3, jumped out 1-0 in the game, dominated the second period, took a 4-1 lead into the third period, and they held on in that game to win 4-3 to take a commanding 3-0 lead in the series. However, towards the end of the game, it appeared Edmonton was gaining some momentum. The Panthers just held on. That's just about it. They squeaked out the win to go up 3-0. Then game 4 comes around. Oilers' backs are against the wall in an elimination game. And like I said, you sort of saw that momentum swing at the end of game number 3. And the Oilers responded in a big way, giving their Panthers their worst loss of the postseason this year, 8-1. It almost felt like the Panthers didn't give it their all, and they were kind of taking game 5 for granted on home ice, because that's the worst we've seen the Panthers look the entire postseason. And it could have been because they're win away from winning a championship. Um, that clinching game on the road, that's always the toughest and hardest one to win. The same thing happened to the Celtics in game 4 with the chance to close out the series in Dallas. So it's almost a mirror image of what happened. Teams just do that. They kind of get lazy and they kind of figure like, oh, we'll win it on our home ice, our home turf. Game 5 rolls around and we see almost an exact mirror image of game 3 of the series, but flipped in the Oilers' favor. The Oilers jumped out ahead 1-0. The Oilers had a very, very dominating second period, and the Panthers looked as if they were going to tie up the game. It was 4-1, then it was 4-2, then all of a sudden it's 4-3. Then Connor McDavid gets the empty net goal, and the Oilers win the game 5-3. However, we saw a big momentum push out of this Florida Panthers team, similar to what we saw out of the Oilers at the end of game 3 when they lost. So that'll be interesting going forward on how that'll play out going into game 6 on Friday night.
Who has been the best player for either team, in your opinion, through 5 games?
It wasn't this man last week, but it's McDavid right now. And to me, it's not even close. McDavid surpassed Wayne Gretzky in assists in the whole playoffs as a whole, but in this series, in the past 3 games alone, he's got 10 points. So 3 goals to go with it. But even when McDavid doesn't have the puck, his playmaking has been what has helped propel this Oilers team to kind of get back in the series a little bit and help the Oilers scoring depth. Corey Perry got his first as an Oiler last night in this postseason, thanks to Connor McDavid, a great pass from McDavid. So productive scoring depth doesn't always stem from your superstars, but it helps, and that's what we've been seeing from McDavid. And he's turned this series around. So I'm going to give it to McDavid.
What about for Florida?
I'd say Alexander Barkov. What Alexander Barkov did in the first 3 games, shutting down McDavid, and that's one of the toughest tasks you could ask out of a guy, is to shut down McDavid, and he makes it look easy. Now, he hasn't been able to do it in games 4 and 5 as easy, but yeah, it's definitely been Barkov. I would have said Sergei Bobrovsky, but the past 2 games kind of got away from him, and because of that, I'd say Barkov's been their best player, hands down.
In the series as a whole, I'd still give Florida to Bob because he's been that dominant in their 3 wins. If McDavid was, is allowed to be named that guy, only being dominant in their wins and then one of their losses, then I think Bob, he can also kind of have a similar boat. I agree with you on McDavid for sure. I got some McDavid nuggets for you. Some stuff that's just absolutely freaking nuts. Connor McDavid playoff points all time. 2 months ago, he was 194th in NHL history, 75 career points. As of today, he's 73rd in NHL history. He has made over 120 player jump. He has 117 career playoff points. He has 8 points over his last 2 games. That is the most points in a 2-game span in the Cup final era during the expansion era. He had 8. He has 8 over the last 2 games. Gretzky had 7 twice over a 2-game span, and so did Paul Coffey and Mario Lemieux. Most points in a Cup final in the expansion era. When they say the expansion era, for those who don't know, that means 1967 or later. More than 6 teams in the NHL. Gretzky currently holds the record with 13 points in a Stanley Cup final. Connor McDavid has 11. So if he has more than 2 points the rest of the series, he will break that record. Everyone in postseason history to have 40-plus points in a postseason: Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, and Connor McDavid. He is 6 points away from the most points ever in the history of a single postseason. Gretzky had 47 in one of his runs. Lemieux had 44 in one of his runs. Gretzky had 43 in one of his runs. And after a 4-point night yesterday, Connor McDavid had 41 points by the end of the night. That is absolutely insanity. What Connor McDavid is doing. I think the turning point of the series was when he got on the board a couple games ago, and he is feeling it now. Do you have a turning point you can look back on?
It was the way the Oilers closed out game 3. They looked fresh. They looked like they were hungry to get in the win column, and that they used that to their advantage. They had all the momentum heading into game 4, and they took advantage of that in game 4 and game 5. I think the turning point also is just what's turned this is their special teams. The Oilers have killed off 93.8% of penalties in the postseason. That is unbelievable. On top of that, their shorthanded ability allowed them to open the scoring in both games 4 and 5 with the shorthanded goal. I mean, their special teams has been off the chart. That shouldn't go unnoticed here. Their power play's been clicking. They scored 3 power play goals in their past 2 wins. I mean, the Oilers rely on their power play more than any other team, and we saw that with their special teams cooking the other night, power play and penalty kill. I mean, this team right now, both are top tier. And because of that, it shifted all momentum in this series.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When I say on the bullet point, what did Edmonton change to get back on track? Their special teams.
100%.
They got going. They started scoring power play goals. They got the one in game 4, the first win that they had. It was 5-on-3. So, okay, of course. But then in game 5, they like really cooked on the power play. They also
Mm-hmm.
opened each of their wins with a shorthanded goal within the first handful of minutes
Yep.
in the game. And that's only after relinquishing one power play goal in the series. It's also the only power play goal they've given up in their last like 40 something chances. It is just absolutely incredible what Edmonton's special teams have been able to do. I've never seen a team have that great of a, at both. You'll see elite teams be good at the power play and on the penalty kill. I don't know if I've ever recalled them seeing anyone be all-time great in both, especially when you think about the offense that has come to the table from Edmonton during the power play. I mean, what Connor Brown has done in this series is like banana lands to me, because they got nothing from him during the regular season. Basically, he went 50 straight games without a goal to start the season, and then he scored one in game 51 or whatever it was. It was like freaking January by the time he scored his first goal of the season. And now he had an assist on the Janmark goal that gave them a 1-0 lead in game 4. They ended up winning 8-1. And he scored himself the shorthanded goal in game 5. It was just remarkable stuff all series long for Connor Brown. I love seeing him on the penalty kill. It's been really, really cool. But do you have something else that comes into mind when talking about Edmonton getting back on track? Something that changed between last show and this show?
Yeah, their top point scorers were able to score. Going into game 4, their top 5 point scorers were held goalless for the entire series. Since the start of game 4, McDavid has scored. Hyman has scored. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has scored. Evan Bouchard has 4 points. I mean, that right there tells you they're clicking now, and when they're clicking, things are going to get a little scary on the other side. That also has led to depth scoring from players as well, which is one of my many key factors last week on what the Oilers need to do to turn this series around. They've been scoring galore. Perry, Janmark, Fogel, Brown, even Broberg has a goal. I mean, depth scoring on the Oilers team has improved tremendously. And then also 2 players that I highlighted last week on the show was Darnell Nurse and Zach Hyman. Both players have since gone on to score a goal and record some assists as well. And Darnell's Nurse's defense has looked better. Guys weren't skating circles around him in games 4 and 5. It's the little things that this Oilers team has done together to combine for the success that we're seeing from the Edmonton Oilers.
100%. And I can't think of a forward in their lineup right now that deserves to play less than Evander Kane. So he doesn't need to be in the, like, if he's hurt or if he sucks, like if he's an a-hole and nobody likes him, which I think is very possible with Evander Kane. Yeah, he does not need to be. And I said that on the last show. Bench him. He's better off on the bench than in their lineup. Like, I know back in the day. Huh?
Maybe it was Evander Kane, I said, over Hyman. I don't know.
Regardless,
Makes sense.
They need to keep doing. I would keep running the same forward lineup. Connor McDavid could play the whole 2 minutes on the power play. Corey Perry, even at his age, can score those goals when McDavid is skating through defensemen and like putting 4 guys in a blender and they run into each other, and then there's Perry wide open with a sick pass from Jesus. I mean, it's insanity what we've seen. I was getting ready to come on here and roast Matthew Tkachuk. I don't know if he's hurt or what. But then I thought he had a brilliant game yesterday. Like he kind of guaranteed a win, like a moron. I hate when guys do that because there's nothing good can come from it. Because like you'll become a legend if you like follow through with. You don't think Matthew Tkachuk is a legend in Florida forever, no matter what happens at this point? Like they could lose the last 2 games 8-0. And the Oilers could win the Stanley Cup in Florida. Matthew Tkachuk is still a legend in Florida. He's the greatest one of the greatest forwards they've ever had. Like, I just really mostly think nothing good comes when guys guarantee wins. And Tkachuk, he backed up his play a little bit, but once he got going yesterday, it was too little too late. I mean, it's 4-1. I know they made it look like they had a chance to come back, and that play he made to score his own goal. I love when a guy off of a stolen puck, he got it he had it on his backhand and he got it to his forehand and shot it in the same motion. That beats any goalie in the league. Skinner didn't even know what was coming, but I honestly believe that particular shot beats Daddy Vasil. You just don't see it coming. Shesterkin Sorokin, name the best ones in the league. That was an
How
incredible play.
how about him saving that empty net goal at first? That was sick. Could you imagine if they
If
tied it up after
he,
that?
yeah, if he would have beaten up Oliver Ekman-Larsson after that play, his own teammate, I would have understood. Because he did that. It's probably one of the most spectacular empty net saves I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And Oliver Ekman-Larsson gave Connor McDavid a pizza right after, and he scored it anyway. I mean, it was just one of the most bizarre sequences we've seen. But the Edmonton Oilers, they get that big win. They are back in the series. It's been a while since a team has come back from 3-0 in hockey. It's never happened in the NBA, and it's only happened in the MLB once. The last time it happened in any of the big three sports that have 7-game series was 2014 when the Los Angeles Kings came back from 3-0 on the San Jose Sharks. They eventually went on to win the Stanley Cup. Frank, no team has ever won a Stanley Cup in a year where they lost a postseason game by 7 or more goals.
Different
Florida
scenario, though.
Different scenario.
I'm sure that none of those teams also had a 3-0 lead either.
When they did it, 100%. Edmonton this season, after losing 3 games in a row, a 5-game winning streak, a 16-game winning streak, and an 8-game winning streak. They have followed all 3 of their 3 straight loss events this season with win streaks of 4 wins or more, which is what it would take for them to win the Stanley Cup. It's obviously different when it's in the final and you're against Florida for all 4 of those games that you need to win in a row, and you're seeing the same team over and over again at this point. We're in the thick of the series now. There's no getting used to it. Everyone in this game knows what to expect, but man, it's starting to like show signs of being an all-time great Stanley Cup final. I mean, if Edmonton gets this done on Friday and we go into Game 7 on Monday after it was 3-0 Florida and anything could happen, and then like imagine if it went to overtime for the first time ever in Stanley Cup final Game 7 history, like this really could end up. And I said this on South Burbs Hitman on Monday. I believe we're in the middle of one of the greatest NHL seasons of all time. I think I've said it to you before. With McDavid and Kucherov each having 100 assists and multiple guys having 130 plus points. Nobody knows who's going to win the Hart Trophy. There were like 5 goalies that were incredible this year. Sidney Crosby was a treat to watch at 36 years old. He had like 80-something points. It was the greatest 36-year-old season of all time. After having 8 goals on Christmas, Ovechkin lit it up on fire in the second half, and now he's like actually in striking distance of the goal record. And now he has a number 1 center that might be able, if he gets his head out of his ass, might be able to help him along here. Like, it's crazy to me that this season has just been so great. And can you imagine if it ended like this? It's great. The season has been wonderful, and I cannot wait to see how this all unfolds. But man, we're going to discuss how we think it's going to unfold in period number 2. Welcome to period 2, Frank. Game 6 Friday, Game 7 Monday, if necessary. It is going to be a roaring Edmonton building. I believe everybody's currently on their flights right now to Edmonton from Florida. Obviously, it's a long flight. Longest flight in NHL history between Stanley Cup final combatants. Frank, what are you expecting to see in game number 6 on Friday?
It's going to
be break it down however you'd like.
It's going to be an interesting one. Right now, the Oilers smell blood in the water. And the fans, if you thought they were crazy in games 3 and 4, they're going to be even crazier in game 6. Now, the Oilers are the 4th team ever to force a game 6 after being down 3-0 in the Stanley Cup final. And the first team to do so on the road. All pressure right now is on the Panthers. The Oilers are the team that were down 3-0. They have no pressure on them. If they lose, they're down 3-1 or 3-0 anyway. But if the Panthers choke the 3-0 series lead, that's a terrible look on their part. Edmonton's playing with less pressure than the Panthers. Game 6 is going to be absolutely electrifying, and I cannot wait.
Do you know what I thought you were going to say?
No, yeah, no.
I thought you were going to say the last team to force Game 6 after being down 3-0 in a series in the Stanley Cup final.
Oh. Why would I say that?
Well, the Panthers or the Oilers are the first team to do it since.
Yeah.
Yeah. We know how that ended. Yeah.
Now
So
it makes
what do you think happens in Game 6? Does it go to Game 7?
Right now, I think the Panthers win the Stanley Cup in Game 6. I mean, would you expect a different answer out of me? What we saw out of the Panthers at
I was
the end of
praying you'd
Game
say
5.
that.
What we saw out of the Panthers at the end of Game 5 was eerily similar to what we saw the Oilers provide at the end of Game 3 in their loss. They were able to carry all the momentum they had into Game 4 and 5, and I think the Panthers may do the same thing as well. The Panthers looked like the much better team during the second half of Game 5. No doubt about it, which is worrisome if you're an Oilers fan. The Oilers appeared the second half of that game that they were playing not to lose. Now, will Florida carry that little momentum swing at the end of the game to win the Stanley Cup? I do think so. But then again, I didn't think it was going 6 games. And here we are talking about what's going to happen in Game 6. I just think right now this Florida Panthers team is too good to lose 4 straight and even 3 straight postseason games. No team has beaten the Panthers even 3 times this postseason, let alone 3 straight. So I think the Stanley Cup's awarded on Friday night.
I expected you to say that. I'm happy you did. You're the Oilers killer. Whatever you say, the opposite happens with the Edmonton Oilers. It's great. I'm super excited to hear you say that. Yeah, it is a little though similar to the way the other game ended. Like Florida was on the attack. Oliver Ekman-Larsson scored. Great play by Matthew Tkachuk. The difference is Florida's back still isn't against the wall. And that's the luxury of taking a 3-0 series lead. You can let what's happened to Florida in the last handful of games happen, and your back's still not against the wall. Their back won't be against the wall unless there's a game on Monday in Florida. So I just have this weird feeling, man. Connor McDavid and Leon, they're going to freaking come in there, and Edmonton's going to be rocking. I like them to get a win on home ice and force Game 7. And boy, would that just be. I mean, if you're like a hockey fan and Florida or Edmonton aren't like, a team you jive with, like, how are you not rooting for it to go to Game 7 after all that? Like, we have 2 more hockey games max until freaking training camp opens, which I will watch every game of Red versus Black, and then the preseason, and then freaking the regular season and all that. But, until then, there's nothing. So we got 2 more of these things, maybe 1 guaranteed. It's exciting. I think I got my money on Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. What a warrior Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is. Players Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was teammates with. He was friends or teammates with, obviously, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, the 2 all-time great Oilers that are currently playing for them right now. He was teammates with Taylor Hall, Jordan Eberle, Ryan Whitney. I mean, this guy was he's an Oiler. 13 years with the Edmonton Oilers, and now he's playing a huge role. He has a case for most underrated player in the NHL. The 2-way game you get from the Nuge is absolutely unreal. Remember when he was a young man and we used to play with him in NHL and call him the Nugget? I mean, Nugget's been unreal for all this time. Yeah. He's been unreal for all this time. And I have an odd feeling he shows up big in Game 6 too at home. Or 6. Did I say Game 7? I meant Game 6.
No, you said 6.
So my answer is yes, I do think it is going to go to Game 7. If Florida is going to if Edmonton is going to force Game 7, Frank, what do they need to do to win that and then a potential Game 7 in order to hoist the Stanley Cup?
Well, I think the answer to both games, what they're going to have to do, there's a few things. First, they need to continue to stay aggressive and jump out to score the first goal of the game and play ahead. By scoring the first goal of the game, you make Florida play outside of their comfort zone and allow them to have to play a slightly different style of play. The Oilers also have to make sure their special teams stay as hot as they have been. If their special teams falter just a hair, we saw what will happen to them. Just take a look back at games 1, 2, and 3. Continue to dominate the special teams, and good things will happen. Now, the Oilers' big guns are going to have to stay hot as well. This naturally makes the rest of the depth better on the team. This team runs through Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid needs to continue to find ways to be open, and he has a much easier time doing so when he's playing on home ice thanks to the last change. Barkov won't be able to be on him as hard. So for game 6, but overall, I think if they could do each one of these things, they could win the series. Now, will they be able to? I don't know. Games 1, 2, and 3 were a different story from games 4 and 5. So they've more often than not in this series, they haven't been able to do it. But the way they're playing lately, we'll see if they could stop that little momentum swing that Florida had at the end of game 5. Because if not, the series is over in 6.
Very good. For me, what does Edmonton need to do to win? Keep playing the way they've been playing the whole damn series, even the games they lost. The only game that they kind of like truly played like dog shit was game 2. I thought Florida was much better in game 2. That's the game where Ekblad looked like he was an unstoppable force that wears number 5. Like, he was excellent in all 3 zones. Barkov took over. Bob didn't give up a cent. Like, that was a game where Florida looked dominant. But in the other games, even the ones Florida won, games 1 and 3, especially game 1. Game 1, Florida played like arse. And they kind of played like arse to close out game 3 in Edmonton.
Yeah.
After taking that lead. So for the most part, I think the Oilers have been the better team in the series. At least it's close to even, I guess, in the series. And they're down 3-2. Someone's always down 3-2 in a series. They were also down 3-2 to Vancouver in round 2, and they were down 2-1 to Dallas. So I really do think this Edmonton Oilers team has just been down and out many times this year. I proclaimed them dead in November, and that was mostly just me being pissed off at how stinky they were. But
They could
like
be
I
dead
said
from
it,
winning the cup.
yeah. And
That's crazy.
you know, it is crazy. But they always seem to like have this resiliency to them this year. They kind of seem like the comeback kids, no matter what the series is this year. I mean, being down, we're down to LA too at one point. Did they lose game 1?
To the Kings?
Yeah, they might have handled the Kings.
No, they handled the Kings. They were down 3-2 to the Canucks.
And 2-1 to Dallas.
Yeah.
Like, they've been down and out just how many times this year, including the regular season when they fired their coach in November. And they got that big win in the Heritage Classic, and everyone was like, okay, the Oilers are back. And then
And that was in the midst of their slump, too.
the winning in the Heritage Classic.
Yeah.
That was like their one win out of 7 games or something.
Yeah.
But when they won that Heritage Classic over the Flames, people were like, all right, the Oilers are back. And then they lost 3 in a row after that. It's like maybe not 3 in a row, but like they lost a bunch preceding it, and then they fired the coach, brought in Knoblauch. People thought it was a game because McDavid was just getting one of his old junior coaches back, but really that was actually a genius idea because Connor McDavid took it to a new level once he got there. It wouldn't shock me if Connor McDavid has 200 points next year. But I have a hard time, counting out the Oilers. And so when I say what do they need to do to win, continue to believe in themselves, continue to be resilient, and keep playing offensively the way that they did and have in the series so far. I like the point you made about getting ahead. Florida does love a lead because then they're one of the best defensive teams of this era. The 2023-24 Florida Panthers. They have taken away, I think they chopped 60 goals against off of their total from last year to this year. And both teams ended up in the cup. So it's not even like last year was, but chopping off 60 goals against in one off season is remarkable. So to be that stingy of a team and you'd like to get out to a lead so you could kind of play your game a little more, Edmonton could take advantage of that. If they get the first goal. So we'll see what happens. Frank, Who right now do you think is going to win the Conn Smythe Trophy?
The way games 4 and 5 went down, in my opinion, it basically eliminated Sergei Bobrovsky for the Conn Smythe, which it's like why it's so hard for goalies to win it, because it could change in the snap of a finger just like that. Obviously, if the Oilers win the Stanley Cup, it'll be hands down Connor McDavid, who wins the Conn Smythe, and there's no question about it based on what we've seen out of him in the past couple games. Now, if the Oilers win the series, it's because of how McDavid completely took over this series. And you may even think Connor McDavid should win the Conn Smythe, even if the Oilers do not win the Stanley Cup, right? That's happened before. It's happened 5 times, as a matter of fact, out of the 58 times that they handed out the Conn Smythe, but only once in the last 33 years. So maybe you're on that bandwagon as well and think that he should be the Conn Smythe winner, even in a losing series, just because of how great he's been. But I don't think that's the case, however. But if the Panthers were to close it out, I think there is one man that is more deserving to win the Conn Smythe from the winning team, and that's Alexander Barkov. And that's who's going to be my prediction to win it, because I do think the Panthers will end up winning the Stanley Cup. So I think Alexander Barkov, because he's been tasked with the hardest job, and that's to contain Connor McDavid. And we've seen Barkov contain so many great superstars, and he makes it look so easy when it's probably the hardest thing to do in the NHL. If the Panthers close this out in game 6, there's a very high chance that it would be because Barkov was able to shut down McDavid, which, like I said, is not an easy task to do. So with Bobrovsky nearly out of the question, in my opinion, I'd have to give it to Barkov.
Very interesting. If Florida won, if I had to pick a Panther, if I had a vote, I would vote for Bob, because I think of it's playoff MVP, and he has their 3 wins, giving up 2 goals in those 3 wins combined. He's the only goalie in the playoffs to have 2 shutouts. The playoff numbers overall are incredible. And yeah, the 2 losses in the Stanley Cup final weren't pretty, especially game 4. But I have many times gone into a series Stanley Cup final. It's happened like 3 or 4 times where I've gone into the Stanley Cup final thinking the loser could have the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. I've never stuck with it through 5 games because of X amount of factors, and usually it's a goalie that you think could win it on a losing team. I wholeheartedly believe I would vote for Connor McDavid no matter what happens in the Stanley Cup final, in game 6, 7, whatever. If I had a vote, I hope to have a vote one day. I really mean that. I want to vote for the Conn Smythe. It probably would be more likely if the Blackhawks made it to the Stanley Cup final and I were attending media for that game. But if I had a vote in this one, I would vote for Connor McDavid regardless of who wins the cup. I believe breaking a Gretzky points, he had most assists in a single playoff run, most points in a single playoff run, most points in a single cup final, which is obviously a little bit more weighted than the rest of the series. I would vote for Connor McDavid regardless. I think he deserves to win the Conn Smythe Trophy no matter what. He has like 37 assists in the playoffs right now so far. Is that how many it is? Frank,
Oh yeah,
would 37 assists lead the Blackhawks from the regular season? Did a Blackhawk have more assists in the regular season than Connor McDavid? It might.
I don't know.
He has 34 assists. So if we go
I would say
to
no. I would say no, but maybe I'm wrong.
Connor Bedard had 39 assists. So barely more than what McDavid has in the playoffs. Obviously, I'm not even going to look at the Devils, but I guarantee there's a team. There's a team who had
Probably the
their
Sharks,
leading
maybe.
assist getter. Maybe the Sharks. Let's look.
If it's not the
Let's
Sharks,
look.
I would say there is no other team, to be honest with you. I mean, I get it, which I had a feeling you were going to say that. That's why I brought it up, that you might think that maybe on the losing team, McDavid would win it. I mean, I might be crazy, but I just feel like that era of a Conn Smythe going to a losing team player. I just feel like that era's done. I don't like it. I don't think it should be awarded to the losing team. You were great, but you weren't good enough to win the Stanley Cup. So why are we going to reward it?
I
I
get
just
the
don't like
point. I get the point. I think Connor McDavid, like, he's the exception to that line of thinking.
yeah, but I would kind of like honestly, I'd kind of be pissed if it was me. I'd be like, yeah, I'm watching the other team hoist the cup, and I'm the Conn Smythe winner. Thanks, but like, I'm not really in the mood. Oh, I just lost the Stanley Cup. Like, this is just a pity. Like, that's just how I would feel, in my opinion. But I don't like it. I think that's why we haven't seen it in quite some time. What, 17 years ago? When was the last time? Was it 08? I think it was a goalie. Was it the goalie on the
The
Penguins?
last time a loser?
Yeah.
No, it was Jean Sebastian
03?
Jaguar. Yeah,
03?
03. The Devils won the cup.
It was the
And
goalie. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
There we
I
go. It's like I just feel like that's a different era now, and I don't know.
I get it. I really do. The only exception, I agree with that line of thinking. But um for the 1 year, I think McDavid's been that much better.
He has
Like
been, no doubt about it.
I just
And I
can't.
think, but I think like credit to Barkov too. I think he would deserve it if the Panthers won.
He
I
would.
think I think that's why we gotta like why I don't like the idea of giving it to a losing team because Barkov was a huge part of the reason why the Panthers would win the cup if they win it. And it's like we're kind of shitting on his play, just giving it to somebody who had this crazy record breaking season. Just my opinion. I feel like
McDavid,
you're screwing Barkov out of it.
you really might be. And Bob, I think Bob would be my leading guy for the reasons I named for Florida. But like
Mhm.
McDavid, he has like 20 more points than Barkov, who's Panthers' leading scorer in the playoffs. It's not
Yeah,
some small amount like
100%.
McDavid's just showing he's better than
100%.
everybody. He's showing he's like way better than everybody. I looked into it. Nobody this year had their leading assist man with fewer assists, but last year there were quite a few. The Bedard tank was hilarious. Max Domi had 31 assists, which led the Blackhawks, shy of McDavid's 34 that he had this year. Obviously, a team like the Sharks had Erik Karlsson last year, so it's a little bit different of a story.
Yeah.
But you know, it's pretty nuts when you think of what he's doing in this regular season would make for like a pretty good postseason, or what he's doing in this postseason would make for a pretty good regular season for 90% of the NHL.
100%.
Like think about it. If your whole roster outside of like your 3 or 4 stars had 40, 50 points in the regular season, you'd be like a President's Trophy candidate if every player on
100%.
your roster had that many points. But yeah, so your Stanley Cup final prediction is the Edmonton Oilers to win, or the Florida Panthers to win in 6.
Yeah. It's going to be
Okay.
tough. It's going to be tough. It's going to be the hardest game the Panthers will have to play, but this team to me is just too good to lose 3 or 4 in a row. So, yep.
I understand. Do you know what my prediction is?
Oil in 7.
The Edmonton Oilers to win the series in 7
You're too predictable.
games.
I knew
I'm too
that.
predictable.
Too
Too
predictable.
predictable. The hell? It's not predictable if I end up being right. That's just me using my
McDavid winning the
brain.
Conn Smythe and Oilers in 7. I knew it was coming.
I mean, yeah, because you knew I would apply logic and reasoning to the way I think. And it's not like I gave you some bullshit answer and said, that's just how I feel. Or I backed up my thought with
Yeah.
eloquent facts and stuff like that. You're going to break 3 Gretzky records in the same postseason? I don't give a frick if you lose. If they got swept and he did all those things, it'd be different. But like you got it to 6 games, and like you were the most valuable player in the playoffs. Like
Just
there's an argument to be made. I don't look at it like that.
Also, the last when it was that Jean Sebastian whatever, that was also game 7. I think
Yeah.
losing in 6 could hurt him too.
Maybe. But J.S. Jagir's playoff numbers that year, they lost to the Devils, and they lost like most of those games 1-0. Like he was dominant. But I mean, so maybe if his team scored more, they would have won the cup.
Now,
But I digress. I would have given it to Brodeur anyway.
would you give it to? Yeah, I would have too, 100%. And like that's non-biased for me. Would you, if McDavid got shut out, would you still give it to McDavid?
Shut out the
Like
rest
no
of the
point.
final?
Yeah, no
No.
points in either game.
No, I guess I do say it, assuming he's good for at least 2 more points in the series
So
to
you still
break
gotta
the record.
produce.
Yeah, if he gets 2 more points, he'll tie the record for the most points in the final ever. If he gets 3 more points, he'll break that record, and I foresee that happening. So I guess that is why if they lose in Game 7, I would vote for McDavid. I really would. It's not even necessarily my prediction on what they would do. I don't know if the attending media has the balls to do something like that. I'm telling you what I would vote for if I were putting my pen to paper
There's
in that
people out
press
there
box.
that agree with you too.
I know.
100%.
I know. And it's not outrageous this year. I've said it going into a final. But something always happens where the guy, doesn't do it and his team loses the Stanley Cup because mainly he wasn't what we thought he was going to be in the final. This year that has not been the case. McDavid has 11 points in 5 games. So that's constant. And on top of that, he is leading the scoring in the playoffs. I think he's got like 10 more points than Draisaitl for second on the Oilers, and I think he's got 21 more points more than Barkov, who leads the Panthers, which Barkov relies a lot on the two-way game. I'm not pooing on him for only having 21 points. That still leads his team.
I also think this will solidify my theory too. If like say he breaks the record or whatever and the Panthers end up winning and he doesn't win it, the
It'll never
era
happen
of the era of giving it to a losing team, it'll be dead. That
Yes.
theory will be proven true.
I agree. I will never say it again if he doesn't win the Conn Smythe and they lose.
Because then there would be no one deserving then. Like
yes. No losing player will ever do this again.
No. So
If you
we'll
told
see.
me
This
going
will
into
be
the
very
playoffs,
telling.
yeah, it will be very telling. I'm telling you who I would vote for. My actual prediction is that if the Panthers win the cup, it goes to either Bob or Barkov. I'll say it. That's my prediction. I'm telling you what I would do if I got to put my pen to the paper, and I believe Connor McDavid deserves to win the Conn Smythe.
You're not wrong. 100% he deserves it. But
anytime you break a Gretzky or a Lemieux record, one that's been sitting for 50 years and it looked like it wasn't going to be broken, like, do you ever think a guy would have 100 assists?
No, right.
Like,
I mean,
yeah.
I agree with you. He deserves it. If you voted, you would vote him. And I think he deserves it too, but I told you why. I just don't like giving it to a loser, so I would definitely probably vote Barkov.
That's fair.
I want to give it to Bob. I really do.
Well, you can look at it like he is their most valuable player in the playoffs. That's what you're voting for.
Games are going to really hurt him, though.
Did it like really impact his save percentage and goals against overall in the playoffs, though? Like, I don't think it did.
No, but
he's currently sitting with a 2.35 goals against average. That would win the Vezina. Or goals against average. And he has a 906 save percentage. But the guys ahead of him all played significantly fewer games. He's played 2 more rounds than Swayman. He's played 1 more round than Shesterkin. Shesterkin was freaking sweet. Holy crap. That's a guy who played a lot of games, and he's still up there. 927 save percentage.
Yeah.
921 for Logan Thompson, 915 for Ottinger, 914 for Varlamov, who's been golfing for literally 2 months now. I mean, how many more games did the Islanders play than like the Devils or the Blackhawks?
Not many.
3 or 4 or 5 more games? I mean,
5, right?
Well,
no, did they get swept? I don't remember now.
Washington got swept.
Yeah, so
the Islanders lost in 5. But yeah, and then everyone even right below them is 900 or less. Saros at a
Oh yeah,
900.
the one game they lost, weren't the Hurricanes up 3-0? Remember that?
Yes,
They
yes.
blew a 3, or was it vice versa where the Islanders up 3-0? I think
Maybe
maybe the Islanders
I
or
thought
you
the
were up
Islanders
3.
came back. Kyle Palmieri had 2 goals, or did they blow that lead? They might have blown
I
that
think
lead.
they blew that
They
lead.
blew it. Kyle Palmieri had 2 goals. They were up 3
I
nothing. I
can't picture
remember.
the one they won then, but I know they won one because there was only one sweep.
They won one in overtime, didn't they? Double overtime, like game 3.
Probably,
I think they won in double overtime. What was it Pellick who scored in overtime? No, someone scored in overtime for the Islanders. I could find it right now.
By the way, shout out to
Yeah, they
everybody who's
avoided
watching.
elimination in double overtime thanks to a goal scored by. Oh, it was Barzal.
That makes
Barzal
sense. It's
scored
kind
in
of coming
overtime.
back. It's kind of coming back to me now.
Yeah, pretty sweet. Pretty sweet deal. The Islanders were better than I thought they would be this year. But yeah, and I'd like to see Bob save percentage minus that game on. And I know it counts; it goes into it. But like, has anyone been more valuable to their wins if they win the Stanley Cup? Like, if he comes out and gets a shutout in Game 6, Conn Smythe.
Well, yeah, but that's the yeah.
If they win 5-4, I'd consider Barkov. Kachuk took himself out. Then he kind of like reinserted himself into the conversation a little bit again. If he has a hat trick in Game 6, maybe. But like, I do think Game 6 will be telling. But
Yeah.
I think Bob is still in the mix. If his 4 wins are him giving up a combined 4 goals, like 1 goal against per game, because I think he gave up 3 in the one win, 1 in another win, and 0 in another win. So he's given up
Yep.
4 goals. That's got to be in the conversation. And you know what? I'm so excited to find out how it goes.
We'll find out before our next show.
We sure will. Make sure you tune into the Stanley Cup Final on ESPN on Friday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. And then, if necessary, due to a Edmonton Oilers victory over the Florida Panthers, Game 7 will be on ESPN on Monday night. I believe it's actually ABC that they're airing on linear TV.
Yeah.
But you can watch on ESPN Plus, but on linear TV, I believe it is actually on ABC. Make sure you're watching the Stanley Cup Final, and make sure you come back next Wednesday where Frank and I will be celebrating whoever wins the Stanley Cup. And we will also talk nicely about the team that loses the Stanley Cup, because I don't think either of us necessarily have a bad thing to say about either squad. Both teams are deserving of the position that they are currently in. And it's been a thrill to watch both of them all season long. 2 of the more talked about teams. We do a good job talking about the teams that end up in the final. Every year, Frankie is guaranteed to have a team make the final that he predicted to not make the playoffs at all. And every year, I'm going to cancel a team that ends up making it through the playoffs halfway through the season when I overreact to one little losing streak in November. So that's really just shows how dumb we actually are. But you know what? At least I predicted the Oilers to make the playoffs, right? And the Panthers. Like,
I mean, you did kill him though.
I'm only a
dumb.
little dumb. You're real dumb.
Yeah.
Frankie thought after going to the final that Florida was just all of a sudden magically going to start stinking, as if when you go through and look at what makes NHL teams elite, do they have the goalie? Yes. Do they have the number 1 D? They actually have 3. Do they have the number 1 two-way center? They have, they do. Barkov. Do they have at least 2 high-volume scoring wingers? Yes, they do. For Hagee and Kachuk are high. And you know what? I'm going to start using that to make my bracket. I'm going to start being real honest with myself. If a team doesn't have all 4 of those things, I'm not picking them to win the Stanley Cup.
I agree with Travis. That's just the life of a sports fan. You're going to have these takes. You
if we
watch
were
a
all
lot
smart,
of sports.
We know nothing.
You watch a lot of sports, you give a lot of takes, it's bound to happen. That's the life of a sports fan. Thank you.
No, but I'm an elite scout. When I tell you to go draft a prospect, I do have a decent track record on scouting prospects. That's the only thing I'm like consistently okay at. Like I told everyone, Zegras. You have to take Zegras 5th overall. He's better than Turcotte. He's better than this guy. He's better than that. I had him above Kirby Doc. Yeah, I was all, and Zegras, he needs to stay healthy and get his head out of his ass. But
His
as
head's
far
far up his ass.
as talent, I mean, you see, he scores 3 Michigans a season.
He's better than
He,
the guys you named, but this guy, he needs to get his head out of his ass.
yeah, he does. He'd go over Capo Caco, who went second. He'd go over the guy who went second and third in that draft, and fourth. No, not fourth. I would take Bowen Byram over Zegras. I would take Zegras over Turcotte. I would take Moritz Seider over Zegras. I might even take Moritz Seider over Bowen Byram. That's close. It's hard for me to get off my Byram train. I do think he's a number 1 or a high end number 2, and I was all in on him in the draft. He did win the Stanley Cup, and he was amazing on that run. Yeah, I'm proud of my Bowen Byram take. Actually, the Zegras one was good too. A couple bad takes. I loved Alexander Holtz coming into the 2020 draft, and he's been okay at best for the Devils. They could have taken so many better players than Holtz. I would have rathered Perfetti. I would have rathered Marco Rossi. I would have rathered Jack Quinn. Dylan Cousins. I was kind of low on Dylan Cousins. I didn't think he could play center in the NHL. That was a boneheaded thing I said about a prospect. So, I'm not 100%, but I like my prospect. I trust my prospect opinions, I guess I should say. And I'm going to give a spicy one. I don't know if you're going to like it or agree, but I'm saying it.
Not.
I'm saying it with my chest out. And in 3 years, I wholeheartedly think people are going to say, Vin, you were right on that one. We thought you were a moron.
I'm scared. I have a feeling I'm going to disagree.
We thought you were a moron. And most of these people who are going to, this isn't at you because you do know your stuff, but most people who are going to argue with me have no clue what they're talking about and don't watch as much prospect film as I do. And then they're going to wonder why. We'll see.
I'm ready for it.
We're going to get to it, Frank. In period number 3. You know who I'm interested to hear this opinion? My guy Tom, because that guy watches his draft film and he reads his draft stuff.
Skokes is here. Got a lot of guys here.
Sub dudes.
We're all ready for your take, VP.
Most of the people who are going to argue with me, outside of you and Tom, who are going to argue with me, but I respect your guys' opinions. If I were the Chicago Blackhawks, I would take Zeev Buium with the number 2 overall pick over Lev Shunov, and Demov. And I mean it.
That's crazy. You might not. It's not crazy. It's not a spicy.
You don't think you're telling me? I think
Zeev is the second best defenseman that's not a spicy take.
But why all of a sudden now is he second? And I fell for it too. You heard me talk about Lev Shunov. I said 2 weeks ago I would take him. Why all of a sudden is Zeev number 2 though, behind Lev Shunov? What changed?
Can't tell you.
Lev Shunov is great. I think he's a stud. I don't know if I trust a guy with that kind of hairline. And I would tell any bald man, no, I'm kidding. My dad is bald. I'm going to be bald. But Lev Shunov's hairline, man. I don't know if that guy could be a number 1 with that hairline. He's very good. I loved his game at Michigan State. What we saw from Zeev Buium this season was incredible. He led all NCAA defensemen in points, and that includes Lane Hudson, who nobody would shut the H up about all season long. He was the number 1 defenseman, dominant in all 3 zones on the team that won the Natty. And in order to win the Natty, they had to beat Macklin Celebrini, Lane Hudson, and Boston University Terriers in the semifinals. And then when they got to the finals, he had to shut down Will Smith, Gabe Perreault, Ryan Leonard, and Cutter Gauthier to win the national championship over the Boston College Eagles. While shutting all those clowns down, he led the NCAA in points. He had 50, 11 goals, and would that be 39 assists for 50 points? He led. Yep. He was 3rd of all skaters in assists. Only Will Smith and Gabe Perreault, the 2 freshman superstars who were top 10 picks, had more assists than he did. Obviously 11 goals. He's a defenseman. He's not going to lead the nation in goals. He's not going to come to the NHL and score 50 goals. But could he be a 10-goal scorer in the NHL? I absolutely, as a defenseman, believe he could. I believe Duncan Keith never reached 10 goals. Is that correct? If he did, it wasn't much more than that. I know Seabrook was in. Seabrook was in the high teens plenty of times, but Seabrook had a little bit. That is not a definition of a guy who
Keith had double-digit goals 3 times in his career.
He did reach 3 times. Oh, good for him.
Yep. His career high is 14.
14, but we're talking about a guy who consistently had 50 assists, 40 assists, 30 late 30s assists. I believe Zeev Buium could be like that. And people are falling in love with Artem Levshunov, and I understand he's big. He's a big skater. He doesn't bring as much offensively, but he's like a true defensive specimen out there. And I think he's going to be a star in the NHL. I could see Zeev Buium being significantly better over the long haul. Maybe Levshunov is more NHL ready right away, and that might be what draws people to him. But I think the ceiling on Buium is home run material, and that's who I would take with the 2nd overall pick if I were the Chicago Blackhawks. Do I think they're going to? Not necessarily. I see them going with Levshunov. But I would take Buium over anyone in the draft not named Macklin Celebrini. If Celebrini decided he no longer wanted to play hockey and he was going to go into gardening or something like that, I would take Zeev Buium 1st overall if I were the Sharks.
It's not a spicy take. It's not a spicy take by any means. Because Levshunov, on a lot of people's rankings, he's dropped to 5 or 7th best in the draft as a whole. So I get what you're saying. And maybe Buium's season or career ceiling is a little higher. I mean, we'll see. I just really like Levshunov. I really like.
There's nothing not to like. He's great.
Yeah.
All these guys have holes, right?
Yeah.
I can nitpick each and every one of them. I could probably predict that Buium's defensive, strengths. He might struggle at first when he first comes into the NHL defensively. He could be like an Evan Bouchard, but who wouldn't want Evan Bouchard on their team?
Right.
He went top 10 that year in 2019. Freaking the Hawks took Boquist over Bouchard. What are we doing? Why are we evaluating defensemen the way that we are? Sometimes I wonder, because it's the most important position, one of the most important positions in all sports. And you know how I feel about defensemen, number 1 defenseman, getting multiple guys who can be top 4D on a team and how important it is. You watch Florida, and you're like, they run out there every single night. They run out Nico Mikkola and Oliver Ekman-Larsson as their 3rd pair. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, he's flirted with 25 goals, and when he was on the Coyotes, he's an older player now, but that's a veteran on your 3rd line playing with Mikkola. That's a solid bottom pair. Their 2nd pair with Forsling and or does Forsling play with Ekblad on the top pair, and then Montour has I'm missing a big one. I didn't say Ekblad.
Ekblad, yeah. No.
Well, that 6 is just incredible. And when I think of the Blackhawks putting together this great, unit that includes Vlasic and Korchinski and maybe Del Mastro one day, or not Del Mastro. Is Del Mastro a defenseman? I get that.
Ethan Del Mastro? Yeah, he is.
Yeah, Del Mastro. And you insert a guy like Zeev Buium into the mix. Wow, Seth Jones is going to be there for a while. Maybe he's their Oliver Ekman-Larsson, a couple years from now. They could be building something really nice if they take a defenseman here. I like Demidov. It's a sticky situation for me with him. If he falls to 4th or 5th, I would take the chance like the Flyers did with Michkov last year. But I don't know, man. I really like Zeev Buium, and that's who I'm taking 2nd overall.
I don't, like I said, I don't think it's a crazy take. I really don't. I think Zeev will be the 1st or 2nd best defenseman in the draft. So it's almost like pick your poison. What does each guy provide more that works out for your team?
He's definitely not getting to the Devils at 10.
No.
I would run to the podium. I would sprint full speed ahead if he were available at 10, but it's not going to happen. I would take him over Cole Iserman.
There's
I
a
would
0%
take
chance.
to 10.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant going above Cole Iserman. I was like, 0? Dude could go third. If the
possible.
Blackhawks take Lev Shunov and Anaheim took, I would take Booyah if I were Anaheim. Like, Demidov, let him go to the Blue Jackets at 4.
I mean, yeah.
But then, I don't know. This is a hard one to predict.
When or where does the Flyers draft this year?
12th.
Oh yeah, never mind.
Why?
I said, wouldn't it be funny if they chose Demidov and then they have Michkov and Demidov?
I think he has a better chance of being drafted 12th overall than second.
Yeah, he's not going to go second.
Demidov?
No.
There are a lot of people that think he is.
Well, yeah, I know, but I disagree.
More people think he goes second than Booyah. But I'm saying I think he slips.
More people think he goes second than Levshunov, too. A lot of people think he's going second, but I don't see it. I'm telling you, Levshunov, he's dropped a lot on people's mock draft list.
Maybe.
I'm interested to see even if Tankathon's got him at. Where the Tankathon's got him now. I haven't checked that in a while.
My guess is Tankathon goes Celebrini, Levshunov, Demidov, maybe Booyah, and then Cole Iserman. That's probably the top 5. Or no, maybe they have Booyah going after Iserman to Utah. Doesn't Utah have the 6th overall pick? What a start for that franchise that would be if they landed Booyah 6th overall. They'd be getting the second best player in the draft.
They got Celebrini 1.
Mm-hmm.
Demidov 2.
Okay. Damn.
Levshunov 3.
Yeah, stupid. Where do they have Booyah?
4.
4.
Yeah. That's why I said it's not
Columbus.
It's not a spicy take saying he'd go. Yeah, I disagree. It's not a spicy take.
That's who I would take. Huge fan. And then this Sam Dickinson keeps rising too.
Yeah.
He's up on everybody's board. And that's who I got confused with Connolly last week when you said do him. I was like, but he's going to go in the top 7. But I was thinking of Dickinson. I got the guys with the same last names as former Blackhawks confused. Or current Blackhawks. And then I did an article, Frank, on this Connolly, Trevor Connolly.
Yeah.
And you didn't tell me he had like some serious off the ice issues that I had to answer for.
I didn't know that.
like ugly images posted online of him wearing certain symbols from World War II that are very offensive to people. Like bad. I'm like, oh my God. This
I didn't
kid
know that.
stinks. He's still going to be drafted in the first round. It's not like, he was a kid, but some of the stuff, I would stay away from Trevor Connolly with a 50-foot pole because of some of this stuff. It's not great. If you're the Blackhawks, especially the PR nightmare they've dealt with in the last 3 years, they're not taking that kid. No shot. The Hawks need to take Haig with the 18th overall pick. I'd be all in on that. I'd run to the podium for that. But I have a feeling he gets drafted earlier. I'm starting to lean. Everybody's falling in love with this kid.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people talking about him.
Like, if I'm Washington, I'm trying to just get the best playmakers. Get as many good playmakers as I can. We're getting Ovi over that hump. It's going to make our franchise so much money if he scores that goal. Who's going to help with that. But I'm excited for the draft. It's going to be very fun. We're going to kind of get right into it right after the final, right? Like that's 10 days away. The 2023 or the 2024 NHL draft. Is it 10 days? No, it's less than that. It's 8 days away. 1 week from tomorrow. Crazy? That's holy crap. I better get to work. I better get to work. I mean, I know the first round pretty well now. Like I've done some studying. I'm not green at all. But there's a lot to be done between now and then for sure.
100%.
There really, really is. Okay, Frank. A couple nights ago, the Boston Celtics won the National Basketball Association championship. I told you.
They were good. They were the team destined to win, VP. They looked good.
I didn't tell
Um,
you, but
it was a very boring NBA Finals. It really was. It, like I said, felt like the Celtics were just a team of destiny. No matter who won, whether it was the one game Dallas won or the 4 that the Celtics won, every game was a blowout. So it didn't really like. It was just boring. There were like it's just I don't know. Now the Celtics, they won 18 NBA championships, making them the most winningest franchise in NBA history. But yeah, like I said, I agree with a lot of people. This NBA Finals was one of the most boring finals of recent memory. There were no ooh and ah moments like we've seen in years past. It's like nobody had really, unless you were a Celtics fan or were at the game or you followed this team, there was really nothing to be excited about. Every game was a snooze fest.
that's true. How do you respond to the Celtics winning after everyone was like, "Oh, they just beat a bunch of injured teams. They're not actually that good. When they get to the Western Conference champion, whoever that is, they're going to blow their doors off. The top 6 teams in the West would all blow the Eastern Conference champions' doors off." And then the Celtics were just like, "Nah, bro."
The Celtics shut everybody up. That was This team was very good during the regular season. Don't get me wrong. They were fantastic, but in the playoffs they didn't look good through the first 3 rounds. And they turned it around. And the Mavericks kind of looked like how they did early on in the season. The Mavericks were a much better team in the second half of the season, but they were dug so deep in a hole early on that they ended up being the 5th seed. So, yeah, it just, yeah.
I do like when like there is like a mass opinion and then it's wrong. Because like the Celtics put out that video today of everyone on the major networks picking them to lose.
Mhm.
And like not just lose, like kind of get like gassed by whoever they play. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. It did seem like the NBA season was a little boring compared to usual.
Mhm.
I'm not calling the NBA boring. It's not my cup of tea necessarily. I like soccer and golf significantly more than basketball, but that doesn't mean I don't like it. I did watch the final quarter of the final game. I made sure to tune in to watch the end and see the Larry O'Brien trophy and all. I know the players on each team, who's good, who is impactful players. I appreciate it all, but it seems like the 2 teams were missing like a star. There was no memorable moment there was no viral moment from any game. The closest thing to a viral moment from the game was in game 1. It looked like Kyrie was walking over to fight Portnoy, who was sitting courtside. It really looked, and then a guy got in front of Dave and like pulled Kyrie away. That was the closest thing, and it had nothing to do with actual basketball.
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that Kyrie almost fought Portnoy is the only thing I truly remember from the series, just scrolling through Twitter and whatnot, is kind of a negative sign for how the finals went. And that's not basketball every year. I'm not saying, oh, hockey's great and that's not what I'm saying. This year in particular, the Stanley Cup, but I would say last year's final in the 2 sports, the NBA's was more compelling. The Nugs getting that done last year and the way they did it was
Yeah.
incredible. The freaking Golden Knights blew out the injured ass Panthers. So, like,
Yeah.
it does. This is not me poo-pooing basketball relative to hockey. I personally like hockey more, but I understand there are some years there hasn't been, during those years where LeBron was dominating. It was just that was fun to watch. People enjoyed that storyline. You know, in the NHL, it might have not been as compelling if the Kings were playing the Rangers or whatever the final was. It goes back and forth. There's also a lot of times where both were amazing.
Yeah.
But this year, it just didn't seem like
100%.
the NBA had that pizzazz. I don't know if it's
Nope.
because Jokic, who is like the one true star in the series, not Jokic, Doncic. I get them
Doncic.
confused. He's the one true star on either team, and he sucked the whole series. And yeah, Brown and Tatum are good. They're superstars, but they're not S tier superstars, right? Like it just didn't seem like it had that pizzazz that it normally does.
I heard an interesting stat that the Luka Doncic averages the most points of any player in NBA history when facing elimination, which
Wow.
I thought was like, wow. Then you got to think though, all the greats really never faced elimination a lot. Like Jordan never really faced elimination.
I don't know if he ever did.
Yeah, I don't think he did.
I don't think they
LeBron,
played a
LeBron
single game
has.
7.
Um, LeBron, yeah, he didn't face elimination a lot, so I feel bad for Doncic because he's one of those players that just can't get over the hump. Like you think of all
Yeah.
the recent guys, like Jokic, he's won a championship. Giannis has won a championship. Jason Tatum's now won a championship. It's like the new era of greats are starting to win, and I feel bad for him. He's like kind of just stuck there. But
Cap
he'll
and
get one,
J
I
Hood.
think.
Cap and J Hood had Brad Biggs from
Mhm.
SI.com's Monday Morning Quarterback
Yeah,
on, and he's a Celtics, he's a New England fan, and
yeah.
they asked him what NFL team is most like the Celtics based on roster construction and where they are. And he said the 49ers if they were to win the Super Bowl this upcoming year, because the 49ers built everything through the draft and through being smart and making a couple shrewd moves here and there, and getting so close multiple times and failing, and
Hmm.
just keep going after it, making a tweak or two here or there, getting the experience. And then if you would be able to say that about the 49ers if they win the Super Bowl this year, which they probably have top 5 odds to win the Super Bowl this year.
They do. Hmm.
I mean, they lost the Super Bowl in overtime this year. So like it's very possible that they win the Super Bowl. I think if they were to do it, it would be very comparable to the Celtics. Just battle tested, kept trying, got so close, fail. All of a sudden they're back and they get it done this time around. Congratulations to the Boston Celtics. I'm super happy for the Green Irishmen of Boston.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And I'm excited for next season as well. I look forward to it. I really like the NBA. It's a lot of fun. We'll see. New storylines to be written.
Who's your odds-on favorite to win it all next year as of right now?
It's a good question. I think if the Timberwolves could get their head out of their ass a little bit, and maybe they will, having this experience under their belt now, and kind of having that playoff run with this current young roster they have, then maybe they could do it. So I'll go out on a limb. I'll say the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Okay. Next year feels like a Bucks rebound and Giannis and company are healthy and they get it done.
I'd be okay with that.
Me too. Oh yeah, I like the Bucks. If Jerry Reinsdorf owns the Bulls 3 years from now, I'm transitioning to the Bucks full time. Frank, what are you watching this weekend?
I've been waiting for this, VP. We had a viewer named Travis say, hopefully we get some House of Dragon talk today. Great season premiere. That's what I'm watching this week. I can't wait to watch it. I probably am going to try and watch it live on Sunday. It will be the first time I think I've ever watched a Thrones episode live, and I'm ready for it. It's been electrifying. Watched it last week that night after it aired. What a great season premiere. It had that Games of Thrones ending excitement that you look for each episode. It was fantastic. It was fantastic.
I've heard nothing but good things about it, and it's nice to hear Thrones. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm excited to hear nice things being said about Game of Thrones. And you know what? I think I got Joey because I looked at him and I literally we were talking about it and I looked at him. I go, we're tweaking. I'm like, think about how exciting it was to watch them live all those
Yep.
years ago when it was like a party. And we're
Hmm.
not participating in that right now. What are we doing? Like, what in the world are we doing? 5 years ago, Vinny and Joey are so pissed off at us right now because, like, nothing in life should get in the way of making one show a week. Like, what in the actual F are
And
we
it's good.
doing? And it's damn good. Like that trash ending to the first series that even you admitted stunk.
Yeah, that,
Like, you wanted to love it so bad too, just like
I
you
did.
want the Panthers to shove it up my hoop. You always love shoving it up my hoop. Like, you weren't able to that time. That was a victory for
Yeah,
VP.
yeah,
That was
that
a
was bad.
victory for VP.
I
It
couldn't believe
stunk.
it. I
It
couldn't believe it.
stunk. And I honestly thought you were going to fake it. If you would have came on this show and said, "Yeah, the ending of Game of Thrones was awesome. Oh my god, I'm so happy that." No spoilers. It starts with a B. But you didn't. You proved me wrong in that aspect because I thought you were going to come on and just lie your face off. I wouldn't have believed a word you said. So it's honestly a good thing that you tell the truth because sometimes you know someone well enough to know when they're lying and just putting on a front so they don't look wrong. Credit to you for not doing that.
Hats off, huh?
Hats
I
off.
wouldn't have
But you're
done that
watching
though.
you're watching House of Dragon.
Oh, it was so good.
I'm
I feel
jealous.
bad that you haven't started because it is
I
so
know.
good.
But also feel excited because I still have it in front of me.
I liked season one. I think season two already has like triumphed season one because now it's like the backstory's done. We're done with the time jumps. We're into the meat and foot on the gas, full force ahead.
All gas, no brakes. I get it.
It's like what season of Game of Thrones was like the really good? Like, was it four?
I
There was
loved
one,
5.
or maybe it was five. It's like one of those where it's like, all right, here we go, foot
4,
on the gas.
5, and 6 are incredible. I love 7, parts of 7 too. But yeah, really,
Yep,
really good. I'm happy you're watching it. Now you're ahead of, you wouldn't even watch Thrones at first.
I know. Now I'm ahead of
Um,
you.
that's why you should listen to all my recommendations, though. I've not steered you wrong.
Uh,
Oh yeah, when did I?
I can't think of one, but I'll write them down. I'll.
Okay. For me, we started Grey's Anatomy. I love it. I love it. It's like it gives me that excitement that like Thrones and Breaking Bad used to.
Grace is good. I've seen my episodes here and there. G's watched them all.
Yeah, I love it. It's good stuff. We're about to end season 2. Probably tonight we'll be done with season 2.
Oh, really?
So yeah, we've been grinding a little bit. Yeah, I enjoy it a lot, and I can't wait to see where it goes. In my own personal life, or no, everyone's been watching The Acolyte. It's incredible. I thought it was going to suck. I was like
Really?
going in expecting it to suck. Yeah,
How
I have been
come?
pleasantly surprised. Because so far, I don't really think Disney has been great with like new ideas, things that don't relate back to the thing we're familiar with.
Hmm.
And so far, this has not related back to anything you know about Star Wars other than the idea of the Jedi and the Sith. And they've nailed it. There's no relation back to, Anakin Skywalker or Luke Skywalker in any way, shape, or form up to this point. There have been 2 Jedis that we've seen. I'm not going to spoil much for you, but it's good. I really like it. It's not what I thought it was going to be at all.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Very interesting. All right, Frank. You know what it's time for? The Devils got a goalie. We got a goalie. We got multiple number 1 defensemen. We got big time centers. We got big time wingers.
Swiss
The
cheese.
Devils have all that they need to make a playoff run. It's time to
Swiss.
develop. Swiss. Like,
He's
what?
Swiss cheese.
You're Swiss cheese. Get the hell out
I
of
like
here.
Swiss cheese.
It's time for America's favorite podcast segment of the week.
Where's my money, bitch?
Hey, man. Welcome to Breaking Bets, brought to you by... Frank, get the graphic up. I am. Frank, get the graphic up. Hurry. Hurry, Frank. Hurry, Frank. Frank, bring the graphic up. Rabbit Gaming, brought to you by Rabbit Gaming, your premier peer-to-peer marketplace. Check out what they are building over at Rabbit Gaming. .com. Frank, did you go 0-3 last week?
I did. It was a rough
You
week.
stink.
But that happens when you're giving picks over a long term. So there's only one thing left to do, VP. You know how you respond? You respond with a nice rebound. You got that? And that's what we got today for the fans. There will be no more NBA picks till October. We got our final NHL pick until October. And then it'll be really baseball leading the way here. So I'll start off with the final Breaking Bets NHL pick till next season. Most likely, unless we do like draft stuff or something like that on Breaking Bets. But the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers, Game 6 takes place Friday night. The Oilers have all the momentum in the series right now. They got the opportunity to go back home and try to win to force Game 7. The crowd is going to be electric. The atmosphere is going to be sensational. None other. But I love the value we're getting with the Florida Panthers here. When it comes to making bets, you try and find lines where you could get pretty good odds based on certain situations. And it felt like during Game 5, the Panthers were ever so close to tying it after being down 4-1. It felt like halfway through the game, momentum shifted back to the Panthers. While it's been hard to beat the Oilers, I should say, on their home ice, I got to ride with the team that has looked better overall in this series. I think they have. I maybe 50-50 like you said, but I believe it's only a matter of time before Sergei Bobrovsky gets back to old ways like we saw in games 1, 2, and 3. I think it's going to happen in Game 6, and I love the plus value. Florida Panthers money line, plus 110 for 3 units. Shifting over to what'll be the flagship on this show, baseball. We got the Houston Astros being your VP, Chicago White Sox. White Sox not only beat the Astros in Game 1 of this series, but they shut out the Astros in Game 1 of this series. Game 2, we'll see the Astros throw out Hunter Brown on the mound, and the White Sox will counter with their ace, Garrett Crochet. Garrett Crochet is a strikeout machine, but the Astros, I don't know if you knew this, they're the lowest K rate team in the MLB by a very wide margin. I don't see Crochet getting a lot of strikeouts in this one, and I think because of that, the Astros will have more of a chance to score some runs after being shut out yesterday, especially. The line is almost a pick 'em, and anytime you could bet against the White Sox where the line is basically even, you got to take these chances when they're given to you. So I like the Astros money line at minus 118 for 5 units. Bet to win 5 units there. And finally, got the New York Mets facing off against the Texas Rangers. The New York Mets have not lost a game since McDonald's Grimace, throughout the first pitch. They are 7-0 since that day. On the other side of things, the Texas Rangers have lost 5 in a row. And with the loss today, that would mean they have gotten swept in back-to-back series. This Texas Rangers team has been far from good this season, but I don't see them getting swept in back-to-back series. Sean Manaea is on the mound for the Mets, and Andrew Heaney is on the mound for the Rangers. The Rangers have not been able to win games with Heaney on the mound this season, but I strongly believe he is better than what his stats have suggested. Sean Manaea is very beatable, and the Grimace streak is going to end eventually. Why not tonight? We're going to go with the Texas Rangers money line at minus 110. Bet to win 2 units as they try to avoid their second consecutive sweep.
Did you go 0-3 last week and just come up with bets that I would purposely root against almost all of them this week?
Well,
You got to pick the Oilers to lose, the White Sox to lose, Vinny to get his weenie chopped off. Like, what?
you rooting for the Mets?
No, I didn't mention
Oh,
that
there you
one.
go. Oh, there you go. Well, sorry, VP.
That's okay, Frank.
Weenie gets chopped off here and there. It happens,
It
It's
happens.
so.
Every now and then you end up like Reek. Yeah, well, that was good stuff, Frank. I hope you enjoyed doing the show today as much as I did. And an hour 41. I mean, that's a
Not
great show
bad.
length. We're getting there. I'm excited for the end of the Stanley Cup final. It is going to be a magnificent ending. I truly believe that.
Is it a treat? Are we in for a treat?
Yeah, we're in for a treat.
We're in for a treat.
It's been a treat so far. It's getting good.
Okay.
It's getting really good. The Stanley Cup final is like a long movie that you watch that has like multiple intervals of intermission in between, like days
It's a long
in between.
movie.
It's a long movie. I mean, the Stanley Cup final started the day we got back from Door County.
And that feels like a while ago.
Yeah, I believe it was 11 days ago. So it'll be a perfect like almost 2 weeks. It'll be like 2 weeks and 2 days if it goes to Game 7. So
How do you feel
it
about
is-
Katie saying she can't wait for hockey to be over?
I don't really know why.
I mean,
Maybe because she doesn't have to watch it. I don't know. But
do you
yeah.
agree with it?
no, of course not. The second it's over, I'm going to be excited for it to come back. The preseason schedule is already out. The preseason schedule is already out. Interesting though, really, we can end the show with me being pissed off at the NHL. The Devils'
Okay.
last preseason game is the day before their season opener in fucking Prague. So, like,
Is it really?
why wouldn't they give them an extra preseason game earlier in the September? Like, what's the point of having that last preseason game when it's just going to be all AHL guys wearing Devils uniforms anyway? If you're playing in that last preseason game, it means you didn't make the Devils because all the Devils are going to be in Prague getting ready to play a regular season. So it really just is terrible in every way. I hate it. I'm so mad, actually.
It's a beautiful day to not watch hockey.
I do like
Less
watching Grey's
hockey means
Anatomy.
more Grays. So there you go. Is Grays better than hockey?
No.
If you could not pick one, okay.
No.
So.
Frank,
I'm just saying. Some people disagree.
yeah. Well,
I like hockey more than Grays.
Not me.
G even likes hockey more than Grays.
No shot.
She commented when I said that.
Here's her hockey tattoo.
Not yet.
We'll see.
Do you have a hockey
We'll see.
tattoo?
No.
Well, then what the
I
hell?
will get one. I will probably get one. I will get one. I have obviously my one tattoo that pays homage to our cousin. I want to make this whole sleeve like a family sleeve, and then I want a Star Wars sleeve. And on the family sleeve, there will be hockey featured.
I give you permission to get my face if you want it.
I would only get it on my asshole.
That's fine. You have my permission. Just to let you know. You don't have to ask.
Okay. I would get your face on my butt. That'd be really funny. That would be really, like, all-time comedic funny. And I'd have an excuse to show everyone my ass. Okay, Frank, that was an outstanding show. I hope everybody watching enjoyed themselves. Listen, one more of these things minimum, 2 more of these things max, and then we take a break for the draft and free agency. And then after free agency, you're at like July 5th. And then it's just basically 2 months of hockey darkness that we're going to have to find shit to talk about. So that sucks. But October will be here before you know it. I already hate the cicadas. I already hate the heat. So I'm ready for it, but it's only June, so we got to enjoy the summer months ahead. I hope everybody enjoyed watching the show. To
Thank you,
Travis, to
Travis.
Katie, to Skokes, to Tom, to Paula, to everybody in the chat watching, even Don Burr, who's still talking about the Red Wings, even though they've been playing golf since April 15th. We appreciate you too. I enjoyed it very much. Frank, do you have anything we have to say before we head on out of here?
Enjoy Game 6 on Friday. It could be the last one.
It could be the last one. It probably won't be. Make sure you tune into the rest of the shows here on the Bar Room Network, including shows featuring guys like Mike North, Aldo Gandia, Joe Mandel, myself, Frankie, next week on Bardown Talking Hockey. We will be back. The next time you see me will be Monday night, if there's no Game 7. Monday night for South Burbs Hitman. If there's a Game 7, the show will be postponed. But the Barroom Network is we're kind of in that dark spot for football right now, but it's probably the least amount of dark spot of any sports league. They probably have the least one, but it'll be back before you know it, and I'm excited for it. We got a lot of great stuff planned ahead. And to everybody watching, thank you again. To Frank, I enjoyed doing this with you. Very fun stuff. And as always, thank you for listening.